Welcome to Disruptive Capitalists, the show where purpose-driven entrepreneurs and bold investors share how they're reshaping the world by investing time and money in a way that improves lives and creates wealth. So let's get to it. All right, thank you everyone for joining us again today for another great episode of the Disruptive Capitalist podcast. My guest today is Dave Dubeau. Dave is a real estate capital raising expert, author, and podcast host, and has helped over 200 real estate investor clients raise over $325 million in private capital. Now, through his new Capital Convo podcast service, Dave is helping syndicators leverage a podcast to consistently book 20 plus accredited investor meetings every single month. Dave, thank you for joining the show.
Big Sam, great to be here. And thanks for having me on your show. It was a pleasure interviewing you a few weeks back on mine.
Yeah, it was. It was fun. Running my own podcast, I've met just such incredible people like yourself. And everyone has a unique story to tell.
Yeah.
So if you would, just share your story a little bit.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I've been in the real estate world seriously since 2003. Prior to that, I lived for over a decade in Latin America, had a language training company in San Jose, Costa Rica, lived there for 10 years, got married, had kids. And then in 2003, we decided to pack up and move to Canada, which is where I'm from. And everybody goes, tropical paradise, frozen hinterland. Why would you ever do that? And as beautiful as Costa Rica is, we don't really realize what we've got till we leave it for a while. So Canada's pretty darn good, and we figured once the kids were getting towards school age, it'd be better for them to grow up and go to school here in Canada. So that's what we decided to do. But I had a little problem there, Sam, and that was I'd kind of left Canada when I was 21 years old. I don't know about you at 21. I had zero credit and nothing going on for me at that point. And then I came back in my 30s and still had zero credit, not much going for me. Hadn't been able to sell my business in Costa Rica, so I didn't have a heck of a lot of money. And I was starting all over again from scratch. And I'd been self-employed so long and had a useless degree, so I was pretty much unemployable. So I was up late one night with insomnia, watching TV. And I don't know if you remember back in those days, but they had those infamous real estate infomercials that would come on at like 2 o'clock in the morning. You too can get rich in real estate with little or no money down. Yeah. And I heard that and I watched the whole half-hour thing or however long it was. I said, that's perfect. That's exactly what I've got. No credit, no money, no clue. What could possibly go wrong? So I set away for this course. And I think there might have been a VHS cassette or two in there included with that. It was quite a while ago. Yeah. But I got this thing and I put it to use, and I was pretty motivated, pretty desperate, I guess you could say, and was able to do a whole bunch of deals pretty quickly. I did 18 deals in my first 18 months, which may or may not sound impressive. A few of them were impressive deals. Most of them were crappy little, mobile homes and mobile home parks and make a few grand here and a few grand there and that sort of thing. But a few of them were pretty good. And that's how I first got started in real estate. And then one thing led to another, kind of joined forces with an up-and-coming real estate guru here in Canada, became his director of marketing for about 10 years, so took some time off from active real estate investing, got back in, did some lease option stuff for a few years, and most recently got involved in some multifamily stuff, more on the capital raising side of things. But I realized early on, I'm way more interested and better at marketing than operating, Sam. So I suck as an operator. So I realized that, and I thought
it's hard. Operations is hard.
Yeah. So these days, I'm more of a passive investor from time to time, usually with one of my clients.
That's fantastic. So tell me, you're running your podcast now, and you're mentoring, coaching. What would you call it? Working with syndicators, helping them learn how to leverage a podcast to raise capital.
Yeah, well, you know what, Sam? I've had my podcast, Property Profits Real Estate Podcast, the one that I interviewed you on a few weeks ago. I've had that running since 2018, which in podcast years is a long time. I think the stat is most podcasts don't make it past episode 7. then they frizzle out and go to podcast heaven. So I've been running that. I think we're at 1,200 episodes and counting now.
Wow.
And basically, I kind of did it all wrong at the beginning, Sam. And that's why I love talking with fellow podcasters. So when I jumped on the podcast wagon, it was more like, hey, all the real estate gurus seem to be doing this. Maybe it's a good idea. Maybe I should do that too. So I just kind of did the copycat thing. And the whole goal was, hey, start a show, build up a huge audience, interview smart people that are ahead of you. Hopefully they'll promote your podcast to their audiences. Hopefully some of those audiences will figure out that you're a smart guy and reach out and connect and do business with you. And there was a heck of a lot of hoping, not much happening. For the first few years, I was doing the whole podcast thing. So, I was trying to interview the Kiyosakis and the Grant Cardones of the world and all that kind of stuff. And it was hit and miss at best. It was good for creating connections and sometimes doing some sort of cross promotion and that sort of thing. It was kind of good for getting the word out, but it wasn't really great for direct business generation. And then about 3-4 years ago now, Sam, I was actually listening to somebody else's podcast, and this young punk got on there. His name was Jamie Atkinson, young British guy. And he said something that just made me stop in my tracks and just reevaluate the whole thing. He said, I've turned the whole podcast thing upside down. I don't care about the size of my audience. I thought, ooh, that's weird. I've never heard a podcaster say that. We all want a huge audience. He said, instead, I focus on who am I interviewing? So I want to interview my ideal customer avatar. Whoever my ideal customer is, that's who I'm going to interview. And instead of doing one every week or 2 or 3 or sporadic, whatever it is, I'm going to kick that up a notch and do multiple interviews a week with these kind of people. So he turned his podcast into a direct lead generator. And as soon as I heard that, it went like, boom, that makes sense. So I switched my whole model from doing a sporadic, weekly, bi-weekly, bi-monthly, whatever podcast to just really focusing on that as a lead generator. I got a little carried away for a while. I was doing 25 to 30 interviews a week, Sam, which is kind of crazy. That's too much. Kids don't do that at home.
Now, were you closing any of those?
Oh yeah. It turned into the number one business generator for my company. Wow. It has been for the last 4 years, but doing 25 or 30 is a little unsustainable. So I've kicked it back. These days, I do about 10 to 12. When we're working with syndicator clients, we get them consistently booked with, 5 or 6 interviews a week. And the way we do it to make it doable, Sam, because you know what's involved with the podcast, right?
Yeah.
Is we make it turnkey simple. So we build the podcast for them. We do the lead generation for them. We do the booking for them. They show up with a clean shirt and a smile, and their number one job is remember to hit record. Everything else after that gets taken care of for them. So audio, video, editing, uploading, scheduling, releasing, content creation, all that stuff gets done in the background. Okay? And then, so build the thing for them, get them 5 or 6 of these interviews booked every week, 20 a month on average, and then help them convert those interviews into discovery calls, and then the discovery call into investor commitments. Does that make sense, Sam?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So I've heard I've heard this before, and I've done it a little bit myself, but not nearly to the extent of what you're talking about. 20 a week is insane, but
20 a month. 20 a month is what we're getting our clients, about 5 a week for them.
That's fantastic. And that's, a month ago, I was in Mallorca, Spain with some family offices, and an old German man, a great man, said to me, he said, Sam, if you're broke and you need to raise money from investors, host a party and invite all the investors you can to the party. You're the lead event, is your party, at the end of the party, you won't be broke anymore because people will listen to you and invest with you, right?
Yeah.
And so he's like, rich people don't throw parties, poor people throw parties and raise money. That's the best way to do it. And so I'm just thinking about that and thinking, well, a great way to do the same thing is to get a lot of people in the room would be a podcast. Get
Podcast party.
A
There you go.
podcast party, right? Yeah. Just there's 5 a week. That's 5 hours of great lead conversations right there.
Well, we actually make it even more efficient than that, Sam. So typically, because all of our clients are super busy, they're operators and they're looking at deals and underwriting deals and managing deals and then raising capital. So ain't nobody got a hell of a lot of time for this kind of stuff, right?
Nobody got
So
time
the
for
way
that.
we
Yeah.
do it to make it efficient is we have our clients block out two 2-hour time blocks a week. Okay. And with a 2-hour time block, that can be 3 40-minute blocks. All right. And then what we do is the first 5 minutes before you start the actual recording, you're on there with Zoom with the other person. You kind of break the ice, put them at ease, let them know what's going to be happening, just kind of create a little bit of rapport there. Then you have about a 20-minute interview and you follow a process. So most of our interviews, they revolve around professional success, and then how people integrate what their version of personal success is in with that, and then financial success, where we start talking a little bit about the investing side of things, but very, very high level, not trying to push any real estate stuff down anybody's throats, just kind of opening up the conversation around that. So that's about a 20-minute conversation. And then once the podcast ends, then we got about 5 minutes at the end there where you're both still on Zoom to do a little bit of housekeeping. And then what we do is we transition that into booking in a follow-up discovery call, which is where you're going to talk about your investing. So if that makes sense, Sam. So for example, if you were my guest and you were an accredited investor, towards the end of the interview, I'd say something like this. Well, Sam, sounds like things are going really, really well with your, let's say, dental practice. A lot of busy dentists in your position, they're making really good money right now, and they want to keep that level of income high, but not work so hard for it in the future. What are your thoughts about that? Are you looking at anything to create income outside of your job, outside of your business? Then the guests would say whatever they say, right? And they might be dabbling in stocks, bonds, crypto, real estate, whatever, right? Or nothing. They might be reinvesting everything back in their business. Doesn't really matter. Then at the end, once you jump off, once you're done with the actual podcast and we're still on Zoom, then I might say, hey, Sam, sounds like things are going really well with your practice. Now, you mentioned you're starting to dabble a little bit with stocks and bonds. Let me ask you this. How do you feel about the kind of returns that you're getting with those investments, the security and the stability that you're getting with that? Is that something that you're 100% happy with, or is there maybe a little room for improvement? What do you think they're going to say, Sam?
Oh yeah, room for improvement.
Warren Buffett would say there's room for improvement, right?
Always.
Okay, cool. Well, we're doing something really interesting with other busy dentists, just like you, Sam, in the alternative investing space in apartment buildings. And we're able to get them very solid, quite often double-digit returns on their money. And quite often we're able to save them a ton on their taxes at the same time. Is that something you might be interested in taking a look at? Boom. Get them booked into a follow-up discovery call, which is where you kind of show them how your deals work.
Brilliant. It's the greatest opportunities are right in front of our faces, right?
Yeah.
Right in front of our faces. And I imagine, even if you're listening to this, you're like, I'm not raising capital, but maybe there's something else you want to do, right?
Or if you're in any kind of what I call a high ticket sales situation, like especially it works very, very well in kind of more the B2B side of things, right? Where you're dealing with business owners and professionals and C-suite executive type people. And you're offering something that is high ticket. So real estate, if you're a syndicator, typically the minimum investment's 50 grand. Well, that's pretty high ticket, right? But if you can be financial planner, you could be, somebody selling anything that's usually 5K and above is where a podcast might make sense.
Yeah, brilliant. So
Yeah.
if you're listening to this and you're thinking, all right, I'm not raising money, but I would like to make more money. Maybe there's something that you're really, really good at, engineering, architecture, something else. That's a great way to, let's say you're an architect, you've been doing it for 30 years. Now you want to teach and mentor younger architects. Start a podcast, reach out to architects, ask them how they're doing, and then, offer their services at the end, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. But there's a little bit of an art to it. You want to make sure it doesn't come across as like a bait and switch kind of thing. So it really needs to be a natural conversation. But the architect thing is perfect, right? So if you're an architect and you're serving other architects, yeah, it would make nothing but sense to have like architect success show. And the
Yeah.
goal there is to interview these architects and really make them shine, like really make them look good, feel good, sound good, because that's going to create that rapport, that sense of reciprocity, right? And then
Yeah.
after you've done the interview, that's where you kind of poke around and hopefully you've kind of massaged the conversation towards your, you know, subtly towards what your thing is without, pitching it on the podcast. And then at the end, that's where you come up with your own version of what we just discussed there to see if there's any interest in that.
That's fantastic. Normal, natural, not salesy.
Yeah.
And it should come from a genuine desire to help.
Well,
Always.
that's what I love about this method, Sam. Like when you bring somebody onto your show, like myself, you're providing massive value. You're leading with the giving hand, right? You're offering people an opportunity to jump on your platform that you spent a long time building up and getting going. And you're providing them with free publicity, free marketing, free exposure. And here's the cool thing I found with a lot of our syndicator clients. A lot of these successful people that they are interviewing have never ever been invited to be on a podcast before. So it's like a really big deal for them. Like they're shaking and they're nervous, they're excited. It's a complete opposite of a typical sales call, right? Sales call is they're kind of sitting there with their arms crossed, waiting for you to, do your song and dance. Here, they're the ones that are nervous. You're the one that's positioned as the authority, as the leader of this, and they are keen to please, right? Basically. So it's psychologically, it's just an amazing twist.
So tell me, how do you guys find your desired avatar for the pods?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Well, let me flip it back to you because you're active in this business and you know lots of people who are syndicators. So think of maybe yourself or an acquaintance of yours who's a syndicator. Who's kind of their ideal person as an accredited investor?
Depends on the syndicator, but a lot of them are looking for medical professionals, people who earn over $250,000 a year.
Yeah.
The young syndicators are looking for people with CEO on the title, which they realize means most of those CEOs are broke. They're just owner of two companies or owner of a company with two employees, themselves and their spouse. Zip codes. There's lots of different paths out there, or you just get on LinkedIn and you speak to the people that you want to speak to.
Yeah. So that's kind of a shotgun approach, right? What we do is we typically have more of a rifled approach. So, for example, medical professionals. I've got one client. He is a medical doctor and a syndicator. Well, guess who he resonates with? Guess whose lingo he can speak? Doctors, right?
Doctors,
So we created a show for him all about, leveling up for medical pros. Nothing to do with real estate, nothing to do with syndications. It's all about them. So we get him on average about 6 of these folks every week booked in on his calendars. So independent medical doctors, anesthesiologists, dentists, all these kind of medical professionals. And he interviews them about their business and about themselves and what is their version of professional success. How do they integrate personal success with that? What does financial success look like for them? That's what it's all about them, right? Really making them look good. So that's his avatar. We got another client who is more of like a meet and greet kind of guy. Like he likes to connect with local accredited investors. He's in Phoenix. So his show is the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast. And what we do is we focus on successful business owners, professionals, and C-suite executives of legitimate companies in and around Phoenix and Scottsdale. So, for example, how do you tell if a CEO is legit or not? Well, that's the nice thing about LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a lot of different things where you can tell what is the company size, what's the revenue size of these companies. You can get a lot of data from LinkedIn and really narrow in who you're going to be focusing on. So that's what we do with him in that case.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, so you're working with a lot of syndicators. Tell me what,
fund managers. Yeah.
And fund managers. Tell me some of the common mistakes that they make that you see.
With podcasting or life in general?
Let's do life in general, since we've been talking so much about the pod.
Well, and I won't just pick on these guys. Most of us in business really suck at follow-up. I know that's something I've been working on for a long time myself. So a lot of these guys generate leads, meet people at events, conferences, networking, whatever. The business card immediately goes in a shoebox, or one or two little half-assed attempts at connecting with people happen, and then it fizzles out. That's a big challenge for a lot of folks, not just in syndication. Not great communication with their existing investors sometimes. So, people don't hear anything from them until they're raising money for a deal. Then there's a flurry of activity, but in between it's crickets. So that's easily resolved with, even just something simple like a monthly newsletter, keeping a little bit active on social media, not just reaching out to people when you want their money, that sort of thing. So those, the other thing is, and this does relate to podcasting a bit, is going for the kill too quickly, so to speak, right? So going for the capital too fast. And what do I mean by that? When you first meet somebody, wherever that is, networking, on a podcast, whatever that is, and you manage to have a sales presentation, or we call it a discovery call with the person, trying to get a check for $100,000 out of that person after one call is a very heavy lift. I think that's too much, too fast. So what we've done is we coach our clients on having a logical progression of things, right? Mm-hmm. Having a specific goal for each touch point. So touch point number one, which we do for them, is invite the person to be a guest on the podcast. All right. So touch number two is have the actual interview. Okay. The goal of the interview is to make your guest look good, feel good, sound good, right? That's the goal. Create that rapport. Then the next goal is see if there's a fit and pique the curiosity and get them booked onto a discovery call, onto a sales call. Okay, then what's the goal of the sales call? The goal of the sales call is to get a warm commitment. It's not to get a check. It's to see if they're qualified and if they're interested in what you're talking about. So what I get our guys to do these days, Sam, is to, check in at the end of the presentation. So Sam, we've gone all through all of this. It sounds like this might be something of interest to you. Is that correct? Just play along with me here, Sam. Pretend you're a potential investor.
Sounds exciting.
Okay, cool. So here's what we'll do next. Would you like me to add you to my VIP investor list?
Oh, yeah. That sounds amazing.
Okay. Well, that's great, because when you're on the VIP investor list, you get first eyes on any new projects we have coming down the pipeline. You get first dibs on those. So what we'll do here, Sam, is we'll just take a few minutes and fill out a quick little questionnaire. And then what you do with the person while they're on Zoom with you is fill out your whatever you've got, right? For your know your customer, know your client thing, or expression of interest type document. So you can, you're basically going over and confirming that they meet the criteria of an accredited investor. If I was to find a deal that fits your criteria, Sam, how much capital or how much money do you think you'd feel comfortable investing? Set 50, 75, 100,000, more than that, kind of get that going. if we were to find a deal that fits your criteria, where would that money be coming from? Would it be coming from savings, existing investments, home equity line of credit? Where would the cap? What would be the time frame for that? So to kind of get all of that information down, that's the goal of the discovery call. See if they're qualified, see if they're interested, get that kind of warm commitment. It's not a hard commitment, it's nothing binding, but it lets me know that you are serious. And then what I like to do, let them percolate for a couple of weeks. Make sure that you've got some content that you can drip out on them over the next few weeks. Newsletters, additional information, education, videos, walkthroughs, whatever you got. Kind of send that to them, drip, drip, drip. And then a couple of weeks later, then you go back, if you have a deal or if you've got a fund on the go, say, hey, Sam, you asked me to reach out to you if I had something that I think you'd be interested in. I think I've got a deal that might be right up your alley. Would you like to take a look at it with me? Then boom, that's where you kind of get more into the, not hard pitching or anything, but that's where they've given you permission. They've asked you to show you the deal when you've got one that you think will be a good fit. Are you following along with where I'm going there, Sam?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Simple, but brilliant.
Well, it's strategic, right? It's a matter of having a goal for each step.
Yeah, you're beginning with the end in mind, right? As Covey would say, you're creating value. There's reciprocity involved, and you're giving people an opportunity to have a stage that they wouldn't otherwise have, and you're presenting an opportunity to them that they might not otherwise have as well. And so I see there's a lot of value on both sides of that.
Yeah, definitely. Works well.
It works well. So Dave, folks are listening to this and they're probably thinking, how in the world do I get a hold of Dave Dubeau?
Oh, well, I appreciate that. So you can definitely find me on LinkedIn, Dave Dubeau. I'm the guy with the big podcast banner saying, be my guest. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want some exposure, I'd love to have you on my podcast. If you're interested in seeing how this whole podcast thing works, I put together a mercifully short and sweet little book called How to Get 20 Accredited Investor Meetings Every Month. 68 large print pages.
Beautiful.
Kind of goes through how this whole thing works. And then you can check that out. You can get that at 20accreditedinvestorsbook.com. Again, that's the number 20 accreditedinvestorsbook.com. And then there's an opportunity there where you can book a call if you'd like to see what it's like working together and have us do all this stuff for you.
It's brilliant. Dave, thank you so much for being on the show. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, and I wish you all the success that you can possibly have.
Thank you very much, Sam. Likewise.
If this episode shifted your thinking, then share it with someone bold. And remember, capital is a tool. Use it to build a world you are proud to live in.